I have one of the most ridiculous mother-in-laws you might have ever heard about. Well, let me just tell you a little bit of what I'm dealing with. She's sick. Deathly sick. I'm talking terminal. Well, she is now coming to us with a list of demands, her bucket list. And these aren't some easy demands to follow. We're talking hundreds and hundreds of $1,000s worth of stuff that she wants to do. Vacations across the country, Birkin bags, designer clothing, you name it, she wants it on her so-called bucket list. Well, we feel terrible because obviously we can't provide her with that. But guys, she's sick. I just don't know what to do. Maybe you guys can help me out because there's a lot more details about my mother-in-law I have not shared yet. I have a dramatic mother-in-law, and it can be very difficult at times, especially when she wants everything to go her way. I was quite okay with my mother-in-law being dramatic, but when I found out that she's been lying to me, I could not stand and watch her get away with it. Queen before I met my mother-in-law Charlotte, my husband, Mason, had told me so much about her. She considered herself royalty, not because she was born into a royal family, oh no, but because she was born into wealth, and in some way the wealth and money she inherited from her family got into her head. My mother-in-law's the kind of person I'll call a drama queen and a fashion freak. Everyone who's been around her in one way or the other could attest to her unending dramatic nature. The first time I visited her home and Mason introduced me to her, it was not a very pleasant experience for me. She had this very mean look on her face, like she had seen a ghost or the kind of disgusted look that you'd give someone who was covered in poop. I tried not to pay attention to her annoying facial expressions, hoping that she would just stop looking at me weirdly and finally say something. Well, she did. And this is the first thing that she said to me, and I quote, "Where'd you get that cheap knockoff top you're wearing, Anna?" I tried to hide the embarrassment I felt with a smile, hoping that she would not ask another question about my outfit and focus on the main reason I visited her home. But she didn't. She literally stared me down, and even though her son Mason cautioned her for the first time, she still asked all the questions she wanted to. It was difficult to sit next to the woman, and I knew that by merely looking at me, she could tell the price of everything I wore from head to toe. No kidding. That day, because I was kind of nervous to meet Charlotte in person after hearing so many things about her, I kind of forgot to add clip-ins to my hair to make it look fuller. It was something I did every day before going to work to give my hair that full look and feel. But on that day, I could not even tell why I forgot. Anyways, I ended up receiving a very nasty comment from Charlotte about my hair, and she even offered to give some of her wigs, since I did not have a lot of hair, and guys, I felt so ashamed. Not only could Charlotte differentiate between knockoffs, but she could also tell the price of the lipstick shade and brand I wore, the price of my cologne, and almost everything else. I have to admit that she was very annoying. And I moved from feeling embarrassed to anger swelling in my heart, but because I wanted to give a good impression first, I pretended like I didn't mind, and I faked a couple of smiles. I did this because Mason had already told me that his mother was a handful and she had the tendency to say or act in a way that would embarrass him. So I was kinda prepared for her, only that I wasn't expecting her to act or behave the way that she did. After I met Charlotte for the first time, I told Mason that I was not impressed with the way his mother acted, and he explained that she always treated everyone that she met that way. Since she was a fashion freak, she could easily spot cheap knockoffs and original pieces, and persuaded me not to take it to heart and get to know his mother just a bit better. Well, with the water under the bridge, we fixed another weekend to meet his parents, and this time around I wore original pieces, and took time to put up and add clip-ins to my hair. Well, all these improved my original look and appearance pretty well. To my greatest surprise, it worked. When Charlotte saw me, she looked very impressed and treated me differently from the way she did the first time, and that's how I realized that she was a nice person, only that I had to dress a little more expensively to be on her good side. Honestly, even before Mason and I tied the knot, I continued to wear expensive brands to please Charlotte because Aside from her being overly dramatic, she gave me a sense of belonging that I've been longing for. She talked to me like we were equals, called me often to gossip, and overall she just treated me like her daughter. Mason was their only child, so coincidentally, she had always been looking for someone to spend time with. One of the reasons Charlotte and I were able to build a good relationship is because my late father and I did not have a very good relationship before he passed away, and I never got to know my mother. I spent most of my years living with my uncle and his family because my father was an absolute deadbeat, and my uncle's wife did not treat me nicely. Not like she abused me or anything, we just didn't have the kind of relationship I had with my uncle, and she always made me feel like I was a threat to her and her children because I was older than them. Because of this, well, I always looked forward to and craved that motherly love I never had. I strongly believed that I would get the love I longed for from my mother-in-law, so when I met dramatic Charlotte, I had to take and accept her as she was. Though Charlotte and I started on a rough note, we got pretty close. Despite being spoiled child to a rich parent, she never looked down on anyone from a different background. Maybe if she did, she would not have met and married John, my father-in-law. John was the polar opposite to Charlotte. He was calm, loving, funny, and owned his own business. He was a part of the reason I decided to give Charlotte a second chance. I knew that if a man like him could be married to her for more than 30 years, then I could handle her drama. At the time, Mason took me to meet his parents, and Charlotte's father was deceased, and she still had some money from her inheritance. Her mother had passed away about 7 years before I met John, but she did not inherit anything substantial until her father passed away 3 years later. After her father's demise, she inherited a lot of money. Her father's company, which had been in existence for more than 50 years, and 3 houses, one was a family heirloom. According to Mason, when his grandparents were alive, they were still placing Charlotte on a monthly salary from her company. Well, the company, despite being married for years, and not just that, one of her bat houses, which had 8 rooms in it, had been put out for rent, and all of the money gotten from rent was going directly into Charlotte's account. He said that it's been going on like that before he was even born, and the reason his grandparents continued to bankroll Charlotte was because they still felt responsible for her and wanted her to still be comfortable and lack nothing in her husband's house. Trust me, I was as surprised as you are as you read this, and there's no asking if this non-stop pamper spoiled Charlotte, because it did. Because of the continuous funding and pampering she got from her parents even as a married woman, Charlotte found it very difficult to live without the things she formerly had when she no longer had money to squander. She built a standard of lavish lifestyles around her, and it became a problem when she no longer had them. To be a bit more specific, in the few years I got to spend with Charlotte, she never wore knockoffs, owned a lot of luxury bags, and only used the latest phones and accessories, and would deliberately refuse to buy any purse or shoes that cost her less than $10,000. In addition to that, she owned 3 customized closets and even forced Mason's dad, John, to buy a house in a very expensive neighborhood so she could mingle with other rich folk. With the way that she spent money on expensive clothing, jewelry, and purses, one would think that she at least wore them all the time till she used up the values of the clothes or shoes. But Charlotte never wore any of her luxury dresses, shoes, or even purses twice. She would intentionally buy expensive dresses, wear them once to an important function, and either give them out or let them catch dust in her closet. As if, well, wearing expensive clothes once wasn't enough, Charlotte was also a hoarder. Not the bad kind of hoarding where people live in a messy home, but the expensive kind of hoarding. Let's say that instead of buying a newly released dress in one color, Charlotte would buy at least 4 different colors at the same dress or bag at once, and after wearing just one color, she would not wear the rest of the dresses again. She'd just leave them to decorate her closet, and if you'd walk into it, you would think that you were walking into a mini boutique. Money-wise, she was a terrible spender. She didn't need to know you to, well, give you money. All you needed to get money from her was a good pity story, and she would give you whatever amount you asked for, because of her carefree nature and bad money habits. Charlotte had a lot of fake friends. Friends who were only interested in what they could get from her, nothing more. Funny enough, Charlotte knew most of her friends did not like her, but she did not mind. She still continued to spend lavishly on them and would take them out to expensive restaurants, go shopping twice a week, and even go on expensive vacations. While Charlotte was doing all this, my father-in-law, John, did not try to stop her. As far as he wasn't the one funding her vacations, shopping, expensive restaurants, and all that lavish things that she did, he allowed her to do her thing. Mason said his father used to try to talk to Charlotte to cut down on her spending and stop living her fairy tale lifestyle, but every time he did, Charlotte would rub it on his face and remind him that she was spending her father's money, and he had no right to tell her what and what not to do with her money. And if John tried to insist, it would end up in a big fight. So he stopped interfering in her money business. Even after Charlotte's father died and everything was willed to her, she did not stop her lavish lifestyle. It got even worse, because she had more access to the money. All the properties have been willed to her name, and she was getting steady rents from the 2 houses that have been out for rent. Sadly, because she was a terrible money manager and refused to let John manage things for her, since they were always butting her heads about the way she spent, she ended up squandering everything, and I'm not kidding. It first started with her squandering all the monetary inheritance that she received, and when she had gone ahead to blow away all the money less than a year after her father's demise, she went ahead to sell her father's company against John's advice. At least the company was sold for a lot of money, and it was expected to last her for a good number of years with the steady rent that she received. But John and Mason went a little ahead of themselves. You see, both Mason and John expected that Charlotte would learn from her previous mistake and live a more realistic lifestyle, cut down on all the unnecessary spending, reduce her shopping sprees, and have an extravagant lifestyle, but guys, they were wrong. She became even worse, and for somebody who had never worked a day in her life, she had no regard for money. Aside from funding our wedding in grand style, changing Mason's car, and renovating the houses, we had no idea what Charlotte did with the rest of her money. She literally became so broke that she had to sell 70% of the things that she wasn't using anymore. When she started complaining that she was broke, we asked her what happened to all of her money, and her excuse was that she gave huge amounts to her friends, and she could not bring herself to ask them to repay her because she told them that she was giving it to them. When we heard this, we just tried to persuade Charlotte to at least try to talk to her friends and explain to the situation of them, but she refused. She insisted that asking her friends to repay the money she gave them would ruin her reputation, and if her friends knew that she was broke, that would cut her off. Well, it didn't take long for Charlotte's friends to leave her. When she kept canceling their expensive dinner dates and giving sermons on why it was unnecessary to buy more expensive clothing and bags, they stopped talking to her, and eventually they stopped to visit. With all of this happening, we thought that Charlotte would learn this time and just cut down on her lifestyle. But no, she wanted to prove a point to her old friends. I was at home one evening with Mason when Charlotte drove to our house with a new car, and obviously new blinks. I was very shocked to see her because we knew her financial situation, and we knew that she had to drop dead first before John loaned her the kind of money that could fund her lifestyle. To our greatest surprise, well, Charlotte told us that she sold 2 houses that she formerly used for rent as a discounted price, and she used the money to settle her needs. She claimed the rent money was coming in bits and it would take her eternity to get back to the level that she was, so she figured it was smarter to sell the property. The only reason she did not sell the family heirloom house was because it did not just belong to her. It also belonged to Mason, and she knew it would be impossible to get Mason to sell off the house, so she never even bothered. It was so shocking that we did not know what to say, and at that point we knew it was only a matter of time before she squandered everything like she usually did. I would have preferred if we were wrong about Charlotte, but unfortunately we weren't, and in less than 7 months everything was gone. And the most annoying part was that Charlotte claimed that she did not know what she did with the money. It got so bad that she became dead broke and started depending on John for some things. Everyone knows that John has also become this strict person with money. Maybe because he worked hard and she sucked out every penny. Like a good husband, he tried to take care of Charlotte, but she kept on complaining about the little that she got from him. And it resulted in a very, very large fight. The kind of fight that caused Charlotte to move out of their house and move in with us. When Charlotte showed up at her door that day with her luggage and a sad face, we instantly knew that the situation, well, something was wrong. Already we knew that she had squandered everything, so we knew that she had a lot going on. Charlotte asked if she could move in with us for a while, and out of compassion, we said yes. Only discover a month ago that she has cancer. She confirmed that she has stage 3 breast cancer, and it's been very heartbreaking for Mason and me. We've tried everything we can to reach out to John, but Charlotte's kicked against it. She said that John knows about it, and since they're not on good terms, she doesn't want anything to do with him. She also threatened that if we ever called John or even mentioned anything about her cancer, she would move out of the house and we would never see her again. So far, Mason and I have raised a lot of money for her treatment, and this has been a very trying time for us. Now, the reason I'm sharing this here is because a couple days ago, Charlotte shared her bucket list. Trust me, guys, in my entire 28 years on Earth, I've never written such a bucket list. The things on her bucket list are worth hundreds of thousands of dollars, and there's no way Mason and I can ever afford that right now. Cancer treatment is already expensive, and we even have to pause a couple of things that we want to do because of her. Mason has said that we've begun to check off a few things on our list, and we've done 2 so far. It cost us an arm and a leg to do that, but Charlotte has been making a fuss about us not indulging in her bucket list for the past few days. We were saving up money to buy a small house and continue to pay off the mortgage from there. But right now, this whole treatment and bucket list are eating deeply into our savings. Right now, I cannot ask her to leave because we're all that she's got. And I would not do that to my biological mother, so I cannot do that to her. At the same time, we're feeling so burdened, and I hate to say this, but she doesn't look sick to me in any way. I can't bring myself to say this to Mason because I know how he feels about his mother, and I love Charlotte too, and I'm really confused right now, and I simply need your suggestions. Would I be an a-hole if Mason and I talked to Charlotte about forgetting about her bucket list? How do we do that without offending her or sounding like an a-hole? I look forward to your comments. Update number 1. Hey everyone, so thank you for your comments. I understand that some of you guys are mad. That Charlotte is making life tough and uncomfortable for Mason and me because of her cancer, and I understand the perspective that you're all coming from, and I've been asking myself the same thing. I'm also wondering why she did not realize that she had cancer when she had all that money. But you know how these things are. I've seen several people carry cancer to stage 3 and they didn't even know they had it. So far, we're trying our best to take care of her and provide money for her therapy. Well, concerning her bucket list, I tried to talk to Mason about us talking to her, but he did not buy the idea. The reason I'm feeling choked is because I now know how much that we've given Charlotte for her treatments and therapy so far, and I'm literally working 2 jobs a day because we have had to save, well, more money because it wasn't enough. And now she's added her bucket list to it. It's not like her bucket list cost $1,000 or something close to it. She literally wants Birkin bags, expensive shoes, a trip to Africa, and other ridiculous things that I simply cannot share here. When we tried to hint to her that it's impossible for us to, well, tick off some of the things she wanted, she did not waste time in blackmailing, reminding us that she single-handedly spent a fortune on her wedding. Well, if I said I wasn't shocked by what she said, I'd be lying. Right now, she's made it impossible for us to bail on her, and it's slowly getting on her nerves. I know she's old, and I should not be expecting her to clean up the house or even her room, but she should at least wash the dishes after she uses them or clean up after she uses the toilet. Last weekend, Mason and I traveled to a mutual friend's wedding, and we returned to a very messy house. She left the dishes that she used on Friday until we returned Sunday evening. The whole house was littered with biscuits and chocolate wrappers, and I had to do a thorough cleaning, including her room, and it was very annoying. So someone asked why I said Charlotte doesn't look sick to me. That's because she's been so happy lately. She's recently purchased a very expensive designer bag, matching shoes, and a couple other things, and she took some of them to church last Sunday. I know this because she posted her picture on Facebook and even tagged me in it. Also, aside from the time that she asked us for money for her treatment and therapy, she never mentioned anything about the hospital she goes to or her progress. She isn't losing any hair, and she looks healthy to me. I've tried several times to at least take her to the hospital, but she keeps insisting that she doesn't want to stress us and that she's comfortable going by herself. Trust me, it's starting to get a bit suspicious, but I've promised to not make her feel uncomfortable. As it is, we're trying to tick off the third thing on her bucket list so she can just let us breathe. Thank you guys for your comments so far. I will make another update soon. Update number 2. Hello everyone, I really want to thank you for all the time and suggestions. For days now, I've been trying to ignore a couple of comments and suggestions that you've left. I really find it difficult to believe that Charlotte has not been using the money we gave her for the treatment of her cancer. It would be stupid and foolish on her end to do something like that to herself. The funny thing is, she came home with those shopping bags that contained her matching shoes and bags 2 days after we gave her money for her second dose of treatment. And I can't say everything happened as a coincidence. Mason and I have been asking her how she's able to afford such expensive stuff out of the blue, but she told us that one of her old friends, who she used to take shopping, decided to return the favor and take her out. Personally, I thought it was normal until I read the comments, and that's when I began to ask her questions about this so-called friend, and she mentioned a different name from what she mentioned before. I haven't told Mason that I want to do a little investigating of his mother because he will not agree to it, so I will just do this on my own, and I hope that I'm mistaken about her. Now, if it were just to comment, I'm not sure I wouldn't have decided to find out if Charlotte has been squandering her treatment money on other things. Late last week, she told me she had an appointment with her doctor at 2 p.m., only for me to return home by 3 p.m. and find her watching TV. At first, I thought she had forgotten about the appointment, but after I asked her if she's going anymore, and even offered to take her there, she told me that she gave the wrong date, and her appointment is scheduled for the next day. Now, another reason I'm making this update is because Charlotte's turned Mason against me. She told Mason that I've been giving her a tough time at home, and that I use every slight opportunity to question her. She even went as far as faking tears. And now Mason is mad. He's saying that his mother is sick, and she came to be looked after, and I'm making things hard for him. I tried to explain things to him, but he simply refused to listen. He went as far as saying that I don't know the importance of a mother because I never had one, and that's been really hard to shake off. I've loved and treated Charlotte like she was my biological mom, and I've given all my life savings for her treatment and therapy. I don't deserve this. I'm mad, and on top of this, Mason's been straight up ignoring me, and Charlotte's obviously happy with the way things are playing out. Guys, I need your suggestions. I don't think I can keep up with this anymore. Update number 3. Hey guys, my apologies for taking too long to make another update. To be honest, a lot's happened in the past few weeks, and I just wanted to tell you all about it after everything's been settled. So, after my issue with Mason and Charlotte, I decided to take my investigations a bit more serious. I began to monitor Charlotte more, and I was able to track her spending. Please don't ask how. Guess what, guys? I find out that Charlotte has been using our hard-earned money that was meant for the treatment to buy herself these fancy things. When I found out, I was mad. I could not control my anger, so I ended up confronting her. Can you guys believe that Charlotte still lied to my face? She told me that she was simply using the money for treatment, and the last time she went to the doctor, they said she would need even more money. I could not stand her lies. So I went ahead to call John against her wishes, and I told John how mad I was that Charlotte was not only squandering the money she struggled to raise for the treatment, but she was risking her life and fooling us at the same time, only for John to tell me that Charlotte doesn't have cancer. Jeez, I found that unbelievable. It still shook me as I shared this, and at that point I felt so cheated. I told John how Charlotte had been such a burden to us. Well, he was mad too, that Charlotte's been manipulating us for her selfish gains. So he promised to send back every single dollar that we spent on her, and instructed me not to give her a dime more. A couple of days later, instead of receiving the payment I was expecting, I got a rewritten will. John had willed most of his money and properties to me and Mason, and he left Charlotte very little money. With this will, Mason found out that his mother has been fooling us, and he was even more mad. To show him how manipulative Charlotte truly was, I decided to confront her again in Mason's presence, and she claimed that she was sick and I was stressing her. She told Mason that she wanted me out of the house because I wasn't taking care of her and was becoming very annoying. But Mason asked her if she was truly sick, and she showed us a fake doctor's report. In anger, Mason showed her the rewritten will and her proof of spending that I printed out, and she was livid when she learned that I called John, and John ratted her out. She starts cussing at me and said that she should not have accepted a lowlife like me into her family when she first met me. Ha! Another shocker. At that point, Mason could not take her abuse and yelling anymore, so he kicked her out. She went back to John's house after ignoring his calls for weeks, and get this, John refused to let her in. As you read this now, Charlotte's currently in an elder home, and I'm sure that she's made a few friends by now, and Mason and I are back together, and we understand that his mother was only trying to knock our heads together. I just really want to thank everybody for the suggestions and supports. I would not have gotten this far without you guys. So thank you once again. Well, I'm honestly not surprised that the will was rewritten and Charlotte was, left maybe 5%, a very small amount of money, but I want to know your thoughts about this story. I just thought it was absolutely disgusting, sickening, toxic, you name it, how somebody, aka Charlotte of today's story, could be so manipulative and even pretend to have something as horrible as cancer, and then just go and take all the money from your family as they feel sorry for you with their complete life savings. I mean, I don't think it gets much worse than that. I want to know your thoughts though, so go ahead, drop a comment down below. I would love to discuss this with you guys, and thank you for joining me on today's video. My name's Mr. Reddito, and I narrate stories like this every single day. So stop on by tomorrow, see what stories we're up to. I'll catch you later, and just remember, it's cool to be kind. Peace.